putting our team's skills to the test today, just see how many things they can get set up. I'm going to have like 40 things next week. I'm going to keep adding more and more. Chutes and Ladders is we're in a series called Games We Play. If you are new, Chutes and Ladders is maybe the most simple, direct, easiest to understand game. It's probably why for some of you, it may have been one of the first games you learned as a kid or one of the first games you played with your kids. Squares are sequentially numbered 1 to 100. All you have to do is spin the spinner, and whatever number you land on, you move your person that many spaces. It is not any more complicated than that. Spin, move, spin, move. The only other part of the game is if you land at the bottom of a ladder, then you get to automatically go to the top of the ladder, and you bypass all of the squares you would have had to work through in order to get there. If you land at the top of a chute, you have to go down to the bottom of the chute, and you have to redo all of the squares that you've already done. So it's this game of repeated exhilaration because you get to skip stuff. You have a good moment, followed by disappointment because you have to go back and redo something. So exhilaration and disappointment, and exhilaration and disappointment over and over and over again. And it's all luck. I mean, it is 100% luck. There is no strategy to this game. There is no skill to this game. Again, one of the reasons, it's one of the first ones we teach our kids. No skill, no strategy. Your play does not impact anybody else in the game. You can't make it harder for somebody else. You can't help somebody else. You spin and you move and you spin and you move. Totally random, total luck as to whether you win this particular game or not. Now, we're talking about kind of looking forward to 2025 and what's ahead through the lens of these games. And here's what I can tell you about 2025. This is my fortune-telling hat on, prophetic hat, if you prefer that language. This is as prophetic as I get about future things. This is what I know about your 2025. It's going to go up, and it's going to go down. And it's going to go up, and it's going to go down. And there are, over the next 10 and a half months, there are going to be some wonderful accomplishments in your life. There's going to be some unique successes to this year, some particular joys to this year. There's going to be laughter in this year. And there's going to be disappointment in this year. There are going to be challenges. You're going to hit hard walls, hard stuff, maybe some valleys, maybe some really difficult problems that you're going to walk through and wade through in 2025. All of us, to some degree, 2025 is going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. The difference between Chutes and Ladders and your life is you're going to look at some of those and you're going to think, man, this is so random. I was just unlucky, or I was really lucky, or they're just very fortunate. But what we find when we read the Bible is throughout these ups and downs, God is doing something. God is at work. We don't always see him at work. We don't always understand that work in the middle of it, but God is at work when you go up a ladder this year, and it's exhilarating. And God is at work when you come down a chute, and it's frustrating. And it's disappointment. Again, you probably don't foresee most of those that are going to happen. Maybe some do. Maybe you're graduating this year and you know, ladder moment. Like, that's going to be a great party. That I'm looking forward to that. Maybe somebody's getting married this year. It's already on the calendar. It's like, this is going to be a great date, talk to somebody who's going to have a baby this year, already know, got it on the calendar, due date. And you already know, like, that one's going to be ladder moment. But most of them for this year, you don't see yet. You're just spinning and moving right now. You're just spinning and moving, and God is at work. I want to look at this idea of ladders and chutes through the lens of an Old Testament character by the name of Joseph, not Joseph, husband of Mary, that we talked about at Christmas. Old Testament. His story begins in Genesis chapter 37. And we're going to kind of walk through an overview of Joseph's life. I love Joseph's life. I've taught on it many times, sometimes in great detail. So we take a lot of weeks and we go through it. And sometimes just kind of this overview. I've shared some of this content in different places before because I love the arc of Joseph's story. And I want us to look at that arc this morning. Our students have been looking at Joseph, so they're really prepared today. They've been walking week by week through the life of Joseph. Here's what I want us to do. We're going to kind of chart the life of Joseph and how it works out. I am not Zach. I am not an artist, but you'll be able to follow along, hopefully. So we're going to just kind of make a baseline right here. This is like normal life. Everything is fine. We'll put an X right here for the day he was born. Joseph doesn't really remember that day, but it was a good day. I mean, it was a fine day. He came into the world. Joseph is with us. As we go through his story, we'll answer the question, was this a ladder moment? Was this a chutes moment? Was this a good moment? Was this going up in the right direction? Was this a setback in his life? So we'll just make a mark for that as we walk through his life. Genesis chapter 37. We're going to start in verse 1. Joseph's father is a guy by the name of Jacob. If you were here at the beginning of the series, we did 2 messages on the life of Jacob. He's the lentil stew guy, if you were here. He's the lentil stew guy. That's Joseph's dad. Genesis 37, beginning in verse 1. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now, Israel, that's Jacob. Jacob was called Israel. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. You're 17, and you are the favorite child. You are so much the favorite child that your dad gives you a gift of an ornate robe, a colorful coat, to identify you as his favorite. Is this a ladder moment or a chute moment? That's a ladder. That's pretty good. You're 17. How many of you are the favorite child, by the way? And you know it. And you know it. Yeah, proud. Proud as could be. Ladder moment. Nobody else likes you in this room, right? It's not that great if you aren't the favored child, but if you're the favored child, it's pretty good. Dad's giving you presents. But again, it's not that great if you're not the favorite child. And Joseph's brothers were struggling with this. Like, why does he get to be the favorite? We're working harder, actually, than he is. He's coming out to check on us. We're out here working. It didn't help that Joseph got his brothers in trouble. It didn't help that Joseph kept having these dreams. And in all of the dreams, Joseph is standing and everybody else is bowing down to him, which is a good dream if you're Joseph, right? That's a good dream. We've all sort of had that dream at times, haven't we? That we would be the one standing, everybody else would be bowing. We would be up top. Joseph keeps having these dreams. And Joseph doesn't exactly read the room, and he keeps sharing these dreams with his brothers, like this one in Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. Then Joseph had another dream. They're just coming rapid fire. And he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. the sun and the moon, a.k.a. mom and dad. 11 stars, a.k.a. all of you punks, bowing down to me, sun and moon, 11 stars bowing down to me. This is a great dream if you're Joseph. This is not a great dream if you're the sun, moon, or 11 stars. You don't love this dream. And this tension starts to grow between Joseph and his brothers, to the point that one day Joseph is going to check on his brothers who are tending the flock. And here's the conversation the brothers have. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of those cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dream. Let's finish this guy. Reuben, one of the brothers, speaks up and says, how about we not kill him? Let's just put him in an empty cistern well, and we'll just leave him. He'll just die. Now, Reuben was thinking, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get him out, and I'm going to make this right. And so they do that. They agree. Okay, we'll do that. Joseph shows up. They rough him up. They take his coat off of him. They throw him into an empty cistern. And the Bible says it was lunchtime at that point. All the boys gather around while Joseph is in the empty cistern, and they begin to eat lunch. And while they're eating lunch, a caravan of Ishmaelites come by. The Bible says that Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood, which that line always cracks me up. After all, he is our brother. Let's not kill him. Let's sell him into slavery and never see him again. Such magnanimous, generous, sweet guys. So they sell him. The Ishmaelites go to Egypt, and they make a deal with a guy named Potiphar who buys Joseph. So Joseph is trafficked from that place over to Egypt, where he is sold as a human being, sold to a guy by the name of Potiphar. Is this a ladder moment or a shoots moment? Oh, shoot, that's right. But we learned some things about Joseph as we work through this. If I were going to attach 4 themes to the story of Joseph, they would make an acronym: B, I, F, F. If you're new, this is why we don't do acronyms at our church. If I were going to do an acronym, it would be BIF, way for you to remember Joseph, and it starts with betrayal. B is betrayal. Joseph is betrayed, not just in general. Joseph experiences the hardest betrayal that we could experience, and that is from somebody close to us. Somebody that was supposed to love us. Someone that we should be able to look to as a protector over us. The closest ones to Joseph betrayed him. That is a wound that is very difficult to deal with for the rest of your life. I have been betrayed, not just randomly, not just in my job. I've been betrayed by my family. The people who are supposed to care about me. And in that betrayal, he ends up working in the house of Potiphar. Genesis 39 says, when his master, this is Potiphar's house, when his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Joseph, we learned later, is put in charge of everything in the household. He's running the place. Is this a chutes or a ladders? Yeah, it's a ladder. It's not as good as being at home with Dad. I mean, I'll grant you that. But things seem to be turning around. He now has some autonomy. He has some responsibility. Which brings us to letter I. Joseph faces an opportunity to give up all that he had learned from his father in following God and living for God. Because while things are going well in Potiphar's house, while he is running the household, this happens in chapter 39, verse 6. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me," which is maybe the most subtle pickup line ever, right? It's like, yeah, what do you mean? Come to bed with me. Joseph, from a human perspective, has every reason maybe to give in to this. I mean, if you think about it, on the one hand, he's been betrayed by his family, meaning he will never see them again. He's not going to have to explain this to dad or mom or brothers. He's not going to be held accountable for this by his family. No one that he really knows or loves even knows where he is. He has power. He's been successful. Power and success do really strange things to our morality sometimes. Power and success can, if we're not walking with the Lord, can tempt us to think, well, I deserve this. In my role, in who I am, I deserve this. I deserve to be able to make these decisions. Joseph is in a situation where the wound of his betrayal is still really raw. Again, it would be tempting for us to say, after all I've been through, who's to say that this is wrong? After all that they did to me, Joseph is in a perfect place to trade in his morality and what he believes, and yet Joseph, let her eye, is a person of integrity. No matter the cost, no matter the circumstance, no matter the fact that nobody's ever going to find out about it. Like those nobody's ever going to know situations, number one, usually aren't true. A lot of people have thought nobody would ever know, and then they did know eventually. But in those moments where we are convinced, I could get away with this, it is very easy to trade in our integrity, not Joseph. Miles from home, betrayed and wounded, having a season of power and success, Joseph refuses, and she keeps asking until she traps him. If you know the story, she traps him. He runs away. She grabs his outer garment and takes it to her husband and said, "Look, this guy you brought into our house has tried to attack me." And Potiphar agreed and sends him to prison. Ladder or shoots? Shoots. Joseph is in prison, and the Bible tells us that the prison official over that particular prison noticed the character of Joseph. Now, I'm guessing there is not a lot of competition for high character in cell block D. Like, I'm thinking this wasn't a close call. Like, Joseph walks in with integrity and character, and he stands out. And the prison warden says, "I tell you what, I'm going to put you in charge of cell block D. That's yours. I'm not even going to check on you. Do what you want to do. You run things. You keep everything in order." All right. Not as good as here, maybe. Not as good as here. But it's something. While he's there, two of Pharaoh's employees get thrown in prison. They have dreams, the two of them. And Joseph can tell, like, something's bothering them, something's wrong with them. So he says, "What's going on, guys?" And they say, "We both had dreams. We don't know what they mean." And Joseph says, "Well, interpretation belongs to God. Tell me your dream." And they did. And Joseph interpreted 2 dreams. To the baker, Joseph said, in 3 days, you're going to be executed. I'm not sure he really wanted his dream interpreted when he found that out. 3 days, you're going to be executed. Pharaoh's going to bring you out and he's going to kill you. To the cupbearer, he says, 3 days, and you're going to get your old job back. Pharaoh is going to elevate you back to your previous position. And then Joseph says, when you get there, tell him I'm not supposed to be in prison. Tell him about me. I didn't do it. Again, nobody in cell block D did it, right? Nobody ever does it in cell block D. Joseph said, but for real, I didn't do it. There's been a mistake. I've been falsely charged. Will you speak for me when you get back to Pharaoh? Just a little bit of hope, right? Just maybe this is going to work out. This is my chance. I'm not going to be stuck here forever, except the Bible tells us the cupbearer forgot. And he didn't forget for a day. He didn't forget for a week. The Bible says 2 full years went by. What happens to hope after 2 full years? It comes right back down here. After 2 full years of thinking, it's coming, word's coming, something's going to happen, and days passed, and weeks passed, and months passed, and then years passed, until after 2 full years, Pharaoh had a dream. And nobody could interpret the dream. And as this was being discussed in the palace, it jogged the memory of the cupbearer. And the cupbearer says, you know, there was this guy in cell block D, nice guy, really nice guy. Let's not revisit why you put me in cell block D, not important right now, but there's this guy, and he can interpret dreams. You should bring him up here and tell him your dream. And so after 2 full years, somebody knocks on the cell door and says, Joseph, Pharaoh wants to see you. Pharaoh tells Joseph his dream, and Joseph says, well, there's going to be 7 good years. It's the good news. There's going to be 7 good years, plenty of crops, plenty of harvest. That 7 good years, they're going to be followed by 7 really bad years. Famine is going to hit. It's going to be lean. And then Joseph segues right into a plan. Joseph says, tell you what I would do. I'd find somebody really sharp. I'd find somebody who could manage all of this so that during the 7 good years, you take 20% and you store it up under your name, Pharaoh, so that it really belongs to you. Store it up under your name so that in the 7 bad years, when people need food, they're going to come to you. We'll have food. We'll be able to provide, but they'll have to buy it from you. And Pharaoh says, I can't think of anybody smarter than you. If you came up with that on the fly, you're going to be the guy to do it. And Pharaoh installs Joseph as second in command only under him, only under Pharaoh. The only person that doesn't answer to Joseph is Pharaoh. Dad gave him a ring. Dad gave him a robe. Pharaoh gave him a robe, a ring, a gold chain, a chariot, threw a parade for Joseph through the city so everybody would know this is our guy. Do whatever this guy says. Ladders or chutes? Big ladder. Big old ladder. Big old ladder. Now, if we put all this together, and just sort of the arc of Joseph's life, it looks like this. Does that look like anybody else's life other than Joseph's and mine? You know what this looks like? 2025. You know what this looks like? Your life. My life. We wish it were so. that life was only ladders. We sometimes sell, so I don't use a worse word, we sometimes sell Christianity as only ladders. And it's not. There's ladders and chutes to your life and to my life and to your year and to my year, just like there is for everybody else. And what's interesting is we have betrayal, we have eye for integrity. This first F is favor. God, throughout the story, reminds us that his favor was on Joseph because he walked with the Lord, because he was a man of integrity. God's favor was on Joseph. It is interesting in the narrative, if you just read the whole thing, chapter 37 to chapter 50, where God specifies his favor. For example, Genesis 39, verses 1 and 2. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. God interrupts the narrative to say, the Lord was with Joseph. That's here. He's put in a pit. He's sold as a slave. And God punctuates the narrative right there. Well, don't miss this. The Lord was with Joseph here. The Lord was with Joseph here. And verse 4 says, Joseph found favor in Potiphar's eyes and became his attendant. He found favor at the worst moment he had had in his whole life yet. God was with him and showed him favor. Joseph is over Potiphar's household, falsely accused, thrown into prison. Verses 20 and 21, Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. That's here, prison, here, prison. While he was there in the prison, the narrator adds, in the prison, in case you forgot where there was. Just so there's no mistaking about where there was, where God showed up, where God was present. While he was there in the prison, at the bottom, in the worst place, while he was there, the Lord was with him. And he showed him favor. The Bible doesn't use that language up here. All of these places are great. It's just that God doesn't pause the narrative to say, hey, God was there when he got that robe. God was there when he was running the household. God was there when he was second in command. God doesn't interrupt the narrative to tell us that. And he doesn't tell us why, but I think I know why. I think he doesn't tell us that because we all assume God is there up here, don't we? We all assume, man, if I'm above the average, if I'm in a ladder moment, God's there. My needs are met. I got plenty of resources. Everybody's healthy. Things are going my way. God, you are there. Like God knows that you and I think he's there when everything's good. So in this story, he makes a point to say, no, I'm here too. I'm here too. My favor will be on you here too. I will cause you to prosper here too. When you walk through 2025 and you have a chute instead of a ladder, God is saying, no, I'm there too. I'm there. He's betrayed. He walked in integrity. God's favor was on him in the good times and certainly in the hard times. talk about the last one. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Joseph had to figure out what to do with that wound. Okay? This is not a comprehensive discussion of wounds and trauma. Okay? That's not what this is. But this is a look at what happened in Joseph's life. This is a look at what happened in Joseph's life. We get an idea of what God was doing in his heart through the lens of his children. Genesis 41, verse 50. Before the years of famine came, so we're still in the good times. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, a priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household." God made me forget. Now, not literally forget. Not like forget. I don't remember that it happened. God has allowed me to live for him in the hard places without carrying the bitterness and wounds of what they did to me. God has worked that in my life. I don't think he worked it overnight. I don't think it was like a 5-minute prayer that took place. But we get to this point. Joseph is here. He's in charge. He's got a family. And Joseph is reflecting, and he realized, I couldn't get here if I was still carrying all the bitterness from back there. God, somehow you did it. God, somehow, this is not a breakdown of what happens in our minds. Joseph just says, I'm at a place now where I look back, and that doesn't keep me from being who God wanted me to be anymore. I don't carry that the way I did. That bitterness is not running my life. God has caused me to forget, to not bear that burden anymore. Verse 52, the second son. He named Ephraim and said, "It is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." Joseph said he didn't just cause me to forget it. God did something in the hard places of my life. God gave fruit. God caused things to happen in me. God did a work in me. God changed me. God allowed my life to be productive, even though I was carrying all of that, and that was serious and real. But in the spot, in the land of my suffering, God made me fruitful. When your life does this year, next year, it's not random. It's not you were lucky or unlucky or you spun the wrong number. God is doing something. God is with you in the land of your suffering. Joseph doesn't say, God, you caused my suffering. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying, God, I blame you for my suffering. Joseph is coming from a perspective that realizes we all do this. This happens in all of us. And in the hardest of places, God, you allow me to bear fruit. I don't have to shrivel up in bitterness and anger and hate. I don't have to be consumed by that. In the hard places, you are at work. Genesis 50, he's reunited with his brothers. It's a whole other story. But he says what has become a very well-known phrase. He's talking to his brothers who betrayed him, and he says, you intended to harm me. God intended it for good. I'm not sure Joseph could have said that back here. I'm not sure he was ready to say that back here. But he got to a point where he realized that even in the hard places, God made me fruitful. And I know now that what this world intended for evil, God turned it around and used it for good, and He is still a God that does that. Here's my challenge for you. In 2025, when you go from ladder moment to shoot moment, when you go from everything's great to everything's hard, everything's challenging, look for what God is doing in the hard places. Look for what God is producing in you and through you in the hard places. Because what this world intends for evil, what your enemy intends for evil, what other people intend for evil, God will use for good. God, thank you for such clarity in the scriptures of your work, of your grace, of your love. Just acknowledging that we're all like Joseph. We're going to have great moments. We're going to have hard moments. We're going to have moments where we're betrayed and moments where our heart breaks. And you are in it. You are there. You are not causing it. You're not sending it. You are turning it for good. And right now, it may have already happened for somebody in this room. There may have already been a moment. I know there has been for people in this room. There's already been a moment they didn't expect, they didn't see coming. And if you were writing their story right at this moment, you would say, but the Lord was with them. And He put His favor on them. And He made them productive in the land of their suffering. God, I pray that we would allow you to use our suffering for your glory. We would allow you to use our pain to reflect a God that is with us in the hard moments. Grow our hearts, grow our integrity, grow our faith. Yes, through the good moments, the latter moments, the high moments. We will praise you, we will rejoice when you send those, and we will praise you and we will rejoice in the hard moments. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's stand. Let's worship together.